Have you ever wished for something so hard that you'd do almost anything to make it happen? Well, that was me. I was a struggling artist, living off instant noodles and the occasional commission that barely covered rent. My dream was to have my own solo exhibition in a real, honest, goodness gallery. But every gallery owner I met gave me the same polite, soul-crushing rejection. Your work is interesting, they'd say, but it's just not what we're looking for right now. One rainy Tuesday after another, particularly brutal rejection, I found myself wandering into a dusty old bookstore. You know the kind. Smells like old paper and forgotten stories. Tucked away in a corner, I found a leather-bound book with no title. Curiosity got the better of me. Inside, the pages were filled with handwritten script and strange diagrams. It was a spelt. I know, it sounds crazy, but I was desperate. Flipping through, I found a spell for unveiling hidden potential. It sounded perfect. The instructions were odd, requiring things like a paintbrush I'd used for over a year, a teardrop of frustration, and a sliver of moonlight captured in a mirror. It felt silly, but I followed every step meticulously in my cramped studio apartment. I chanted the words, which felt like nonsense syllables on my tongue, and focused all my longing, all my hopes for my art, into that single moment. Then, nothing happened. I felt a bit foolish and went to bed, writing it off as a moment of desperation. The next morning, I woke up, and something was different. The sunlight hitting my canvases seemed brighter. I picked up a brush, and it was like my hand had a mind of its own. Colors blended in ways I'd never imagined. Shapes formed with a grace and power I didn't know I possessed. I wasn't just painting. I was channeling something. The paintings were magnificent, vibrant, and alive in a way my previous work had never been. They were so good, in fact, they were a little scary. They seemed to pulse with their own energy. Excited and a little freaked out, I took photos of my new work and emailed them to a top gallery, the one that had rejected me most recently. I didn't expect a reply, but an hour later, my phone rang. It was the gallery owner herself, gushing. She said my work was transformative, a revelation. She offered me a solo exhibition, starting next month. I was ecstatic. The spell had worked. But here's where it gets weird. The gallery owner asked for more pieces, and I started painting non-stop. Days and nights blurred into a frenzy of creation. I didn't need to eat. I didn't need to sleep. All I needed was to paint. My friends got worried. They said I looked gaunt, that my eyes had a strange, feverish light in them. I brushed them off. This was my dream, wasn't it? The night before the exhibition opening, I was putting the final touches on the centerpiece, a massive canvas that depicted a swirling vortex of color. As my brush touched the canvas for the last time, the painting began to glow. The air in my studio grew thick and heavy, and the colors on the canvas started to move, to swirl not just on the canvas, but off of it. The vortex in the painting was becoming real, pulling things from my studio into paint tubes, brushes, even a chair. I stumbled back in terror. The spell hadn't just unveiled my potential. It had opened a door to wherever my inspiration was coming from. And now, that door was threatening to swallow my entire world. The beautiful, mesmerizing art was a conduit for something powerful and uncontrollable. I had my exhibition, my dream had come true, but it had worked a little too well. I stood there, frozen, watching my art literally come to life, and I had no idea how to stop it. So, what do you think happened next? Did I manage to close the portal, or did my art consume everything? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. See you next time. Have you ever heard the story of the woman in the woods? It's an old tale, One whispered around campfires and told two children to keep them from wandering too far from home. It's the story of a woman who lives in a small, crooked cottage, deep in the heart of the forest, where sunlight struggles to reach the mossy ground. She's not a witch, not in the way you might think. She doesn't have a pointy hat or a bubbling cauldron. She's just ... a woman. An old woman with kind eyes and a smile that doesn't quite reach them. Travelers who get lost, who find their paths twisted and their compasses spinning wildly, sometimes stumble upon her cottage. Smoke curls from its stone chimney, smelling of baking bread and warm spices. Exhausted and hungry, they knock on her weathered wooden door. She always answers. She invites them in, offers them a seat by her crackling fire, and places a steaming mug of tea on the table before them. "You look weary, dear," she says, her voice like rustling leaves. "Have some tea, sweeten it to your liking." Beside the mug, she places two identical, pristine white ceramic bowls. One contains sparkling, crystalline sugar. The other holds coarse, glistening salt. This is her test, her quiet game. The weary traveler, eager for a comforting sweet drink after their ordeal, almost always reaches for the sugar. They spoon it into their tea, stir it, and take a sip, their faces lighting up with relief and gratitude. The woman just smiles, that same sad smile, nods, and offers them a slice of freshly baked bread. She gives them directions back to the main road, and they leave, feeling refreshed and saved, never knowing the choice they just made. But what if they chose the salt? What if a traveler, perhaps someone who has known bitterness in their life, someone who understands that not everything sweet is good, and not everything salty is bad, pauses? What if they look at the two bowls, truly look and see the subtle difference in the crystals? What if they understand that life isn't always about seeking immediate sweetness and comfort? Maybe they've learned that hardship, like salt, can preserve, can cleanse, can add a depth of flavor that sugar can never provide. So, this rare traveler reaches for the salt. They spoon a small amount into their tea. The woman's eyes widen just for a second. The sad smile vanishes, replaced by a look of genuine surprise and recognition. As the traveler sips the strange briny tea without flinching, the woman's home seems to change. The shadows in the corners retreat. The fire burns brighter. The bread she offers tastes richer than anything they've ever eaten. She doesn't give them directions back to the road they came from. Instead, she shows them a new path, one hidden behind her cottage, overgrown with silver-leafed ferns and glowing mushrooms. "This path," she says, her voice now clear and strong, "doesn't lead back to where you were. It leads to where you need to be." The traveler, who chose the salt, who understood the nature of her test, doesn't return to their old life. They step onto a new path, one of purpose and discovery, a road meant only for those who aren't afraid of a little bitterness. So the story isn't really about a woman in the woods. It's about the choices we face. Every day, we're offered two bowls. One is easy, sweet, and comfortable. The other is difficult, challenging, and maybe even a little painful. We're so conditioned to reach for the sugar, to avoid discomfort at all costs. But maybe, just maybe, the greatest rewards, the most profound transformations, and the paths to our true selves are hidden on the other side of that choice. Maybe sometimes we need to choose the salt. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tallies to make you think. See you in the next video. Have you ever looked into a mirror and felt like something was looking back at you? Not just your reflection, but something ... else. In the quiet, forgotten town of Blackwood Creek, there's a legend about a mirror that does more than just reflect. They call it the Crimson Glass, and its story is one you won't easily forget. It all started with an antique shop, the kind with dusty corners and secrets in every shadow. An ornate, full-length mirror was delivered one rainy afternoon. Its frame was carved from dark, gnarled wood, and the glass itself was strangely clouded, almost like it was holding its breath. The shop owner, an old man named Elias, felt a chill the moment he saw it. But business was slow, so he put it on display. That's when the strange things began. At night, Elias would hear whispers coming from the back of the shop where the mirror stood. He'd find candles he never lit, their wax melted and pooled at the mirror's base. At first, he dismissed it as his old mind playing tricks. But then, he started noticing something on the glass. Faint, reddish, brown streaks that would appear and disappear, almost like fingerprints, or bloodstains. He'd clean them, but they always returned, darker and more defined each time. One evening, a young couple, Clara and Ben, wandered into the shop. Clara was immediately drawn to the mirror. "It's beautiful," she whispered, her reflection looking pale and distant in the clouded glass. Elias tried to warn them, telling them the mirror had a strange history, but they were captivated. They bought it, thinking it would be the perfect centerpiece for their new home. That was their first mistake. The very first night the mirror was in their house, the strange occurrences escalated. The whispers they heard were clearer now, seeming to come directly from the mirror. They'd catch fleeting movements in their peripheral vision, distorted shapes writhing just behind their reflections. The melted wax started appearing at its base, sometimes forming strange runic symbols before hardening, and the blood. The blood was no longer just faint streaks. It was like someone had pressed a bleeding hand against the glass from the inside. Ben, a rational man, tried to find an explanation. He thought maybe it was humidity, a chemical reaction in the old silvering. But he couldn't explain the whispers or the intense feeling of being watched, especially when he was near the mirror. Clara, however, was becoming obsessed. She'd spend hours staring into it, her own reflection growing fainter each day, as if the mirror was slowly consuming it. She claimed she could see a figure in the glass, a woman with hollow eyes and a silent scream etched on her face. Driven by a mix of fear and desperation, Ben started researching the mirror's origins. He uncovered a dark tale from the 1800s about a woman named Isabella, a practitioner of dark arts who was obsessed with eternal life. Legends said she performed a ritual using her own blood and enchanted wax, attempting to trap her soul within the mirror, hoping to one day find a new body to inhabit. The ritual went wrong. She was trapped, not as a soul, but as a hungry, desperate echo, forever bound to the glass. The wax and blood weren't just random stains. They were remnants of the ritual, perpetually replaying itself. The mirror wasn't just a haunted object. It was a prison and a gateway. Isabella's echo was trying to pull someone in, to swap places with them. One night, Ben came home to find the house eerily silent. He called for Clara, but there was no answer. He ran to the living room and froze. The mirror was glowing with a faint, crimson light. The entire surface was smeared with fresh blood, and a pool of melted wax surrounded its base. In the glass, he saw Clara's reflection, but it wasn't her. Her eyes were hollow, her mouth open in a silent scream. And standing behind her, where her reflection should have been, was a different woman, smiling a terrible, triumphant smile. On the floor in front of the mirror, Clara lay unconscious, pale and cold. Ben had to act fast. Remembering the legend, he knew he couldn't just break the mirror. That might release the entity. He had to sever its connection to the world. He grabbed the heaviest blanket he could find and threw it over the mirror, blocking its view. The whispers stopped. The crimson glow faded. He rushed to Clara's side, and thankfully, she was still breathing. They never uncovered the mirror again. They had it professionally sealed in a crate filled with salt and protective herbs, and buried it deep in the earth where no one would ever find it. Clara recovered, but with no memory of the past few weeks. Sometimes, though, she avoids her own reflection, saying she sees a stranger's eyes looking back. So if you ever find an old ornate mirror in a dusty shop, one that seems to pull you in, maybe think twice. Some reflections are best left unseen, because you never know what might be waiting on the other side of the glass. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, be sure to like and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe. Have you ever felt like you didn't quite belong? Like there was a secret language only you could understand? That's exactly how Alara felt. In her village, nestled at the foot of the slumbering Mount Cinder, everyone had a role. The men were hunters, the women were weavers, and the elders told stories of the old world. But Alara was different. She didn't have the patience for weaving, and the hunting stories made her sad. Instead, she was drawn to the fire. From the time she was a little girl, Alara would sit by the hearth for hours, long after everyone else had gone to bed. It wasn't just the warmth she loved, or the dancing colors. It was something more. She heard whispers in the crackle and pop of the burning logs, saw faces in the swirling embers. The fire spoke to her, not in words, but in feelings, in images. It told her when a storm was coming, showed her where a lost lamb had wandered, and shared the sorrow of a wilting tree. The other villagers thought she was strange, daydreaming again. Alara, they'd say, shaking their heads. Her parents worried, urging her to learn a proper skill. But how could she explain that the fire was her teacher? That its glowing heart held more knowledge than any book or lesson? She felt isolated, a single flickering flame in a world of solid stone. One year, the rains didn't come. The streams dried up, the crops withered in the fields, and the great Mount Cinder began to stir. A low, angry rumble echoed through the valley, and a thin plume of smoke rose from its peak, a warning sign everyone understood. Fear gripped the village. The elders gathered, chanting ancient prayers, offering desperate sacrifices. But the mountain only grew more restless. The ground trembled, and the air grew thick with ash. Panic began to set in. That night, as the village huddled in fear, Alara crept to the great bonfire in the center square. The flames leaped high, wild, and chaotic, mirroring the terror in everyone's hearts. But Alara wasn't afraid. She looked deep into the inferno and spoke to it, not with her voice, but with her mind, with her very soul. She asked the fire what the mountain wanted, why it was so angry. Then the fire answered. In a rush of searing heat and dazzling light, it showed her a vision. She saw the heart of the mountain, a core of ancient, sleeping lava. But it wasn't just lava. It was a life force, the spirit of the land itself. And it was in pain. The drought had starved it, weakened it. The mountain wasn't angry. It was crying out for help. The fire showed her a hidden spring deep within the forest, a vein of pure water that the drought hadn't touched. The mountain needed this water. It needed to be soothed. Filled with a purpose she had never known, Alara ran to the elders. She tried to explain what she had seen, her words tumbling out in a rush. They looked at her with disbelief. The strange girl who talked to flames. How could they trust their lives to a child's fantasy? But her father, seeing the fierce conviction in her eyes, finally spoke up. What have we to lose? Our prayers have failed. Let us listen to our daughter. A small party, guided by Alara, ventured into the darkening forest. They didn't need a path. She followed the gentle, warm pull she felt from the fire's memory. They found the spring exactly where the fire had shown her. a hidden pool of crystal clear water. With great effort, they diverted a channel of water toward the thirsty mountain. As the first trickle reached the dry, cracked earth at the base of Mount Cinder, a deep sigh seemed to shudder through the ground. The rumblings softened, the smoke from the peak thinned. As more water flowed, the mountain grew quiet, its fury appeased. The next morning, the villagers awoke not to trembling earth, but to a gentle, steady rain falling from the sky. The land was saved. Alara was no longer the strange girl. She was their hero. She had listened when no one else could hear, and she had understood a language older than words. She had spoken to the fire, and in doing so, she had saved them all. Her gift, once a source of shame, had become their greatest strength. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from our world. See you next time. Do you ever feel like you're under some kind of hex? Like no matter what you do, things just don't go your way. You try to save money, but your car breaks down. You start a new diet, and suddenly free donuts appear at work every single day. It's like the universe is playing a practical joke on you, and you're the punchline. Well, what if I told you that this hex isn't cast by some mysterious sorcerer, but by something much closer to home? Something inside your own mind. I'm talking about our self-limiting beliefs. These are the sneaky little stories we tell ourselves, often without even realizing it. Stories like, I'm not good enough, I'm always unlucky, or I'll never be successful. Sound familiar? These thoughts act like a powerful, invisible hex, holding us back from reaching our true potential. They create a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe you're unlucky, you'll start noticing every little thing that goes wrong, reinforcing that belief, while completely ignoring the good things. Think about it. Have you ever avoided applying for a job because you thought, I'd never get it anyway? Or maybe you didn't ask someone out because you were convinced they'd say no. That's the hex at work. It's not magic. It's psychology. Our brains are wired to look for evidence that confirms what we already believe. So, if we believe we're destined to fail, our brain will actively filter reality to prove us right. It's a comfortable trap, but it's still a trap. The good news is, unlike a real hex, this is one you have the power to break. The first step is awareness. You have to catch yourself in the act. When that negative thought pops into your head, don't just accept it. Stop and ask, is this really true? Where's the evidence? Challenge that inner critic. For every negative thought, try to find a counterexample from your own life. You think you're always unlucky? What about that time you found a $20 bill on the street, or caught every green light on your way to work? Once you start questioning these beliefs, you can begin to rewrite them. Instead of, I can't do this, try, I can learn how to do this. Instead of, I'm not smart enough, say, I have a unique way of thinking. This isn't about lying to yourself. It's about shifting your perspective and giving yourself a fair chance. It's like reprogramming the spell. You're changing the incantation from one of failure to one of possibility. This process takes time and practice. It's like building a muscle. At first it will feel strange and difficult, but the more you do it, the stronger you'll become. Start small. Celebrate the little victories. Every time you challenge a negative thought, you're weakening the hex. Every time you take a small step outside your comfort zone, you're proving to yourself that the old story was wrong. Breaking this internal hex is one of the most liberating things you can do. It opens up a world of possibilities that you previously thought was closed to you. You'll start to see opportunities instead of obstacles. You'll have the courage to pursue your dreams, not because you're guaranteed to succeed, but because you're no longer guaranteed to fail by your own self-sabotage. You become the master of your own destiny. not the victim of a spell. So, the next time you feel that familiar cloud of bad luck hanging over you, remember where it's really coming from. It's not fate. It's not a curse from an old enemy. It's a story. And you are the author. You have the power to pick up the pen and write a new ending. A better ending. Thanks so much for watching. If this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more content on breaking barriers and living your best life. See you in the next one.